You do not belong here!
The restaurant was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that feels fragile, like it could shatter at any second. Soft music played in the background. Coffee cups clinked gently. Plates slid across wooden tables. It was a regular Saturday morning at a small family-owned restaurant just outside the city. Nothing fancy, just a place where people came to relax, eat, and forget about the world for a moment. At a corner table sat a black man in his late 30s. He looked ordinary. Clean haircut, neutral jacket, jeans, a simple watch on his wrist. No flashy jewelry, no visible weapon, no badge. Just a man scrolling through his phone while waiting for his breakfast. His posture was relaxed but alert, the kind of alertness that comes from years of discipline, years of training, years of knowing how quickly peace can turn into chaos. His name was Marcus. To everyone else in that restaurant, Marcus was just another customer. But what no one knew was that Marcus was a federal agent, an undercover investigator who had spent over a decade working cases involving corruption, organized crime, and civil rights violations. Today, he wasn't on a dramatic mission. He wasn't chasing anyone. He was simply waiting to meet a confidential source later that morning. Breakfast first. Business later. The door of the restaurant suddenly swung open with force. A uniformed police officer walked in. He was white, mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with a hardened expression that suggested he was used to being obeyed without question. His gun rested heavily on his hip. His badge caught the light as he stepped inside. His name was Officer Reynolds. The moment Reynolds entered, the atmosphere shifted. Not because he announced himself, not because he said anything, but because of how he looked around the room. His eyes scanned every table, every face, lingering longer than necessary. Not searching for danger, not responding to a call, just watching, judging, measuring. Then his gaze landed on Marcus, and it stayed there. Marcus noticed it immediately. He'd been trained to notice things like that. Subtle changes, lingering stares, the way authority sometimes looks at people before it speaks. Marcus glanced up briefly, made eye contact, then looked back at his phone. He didn't react. He didn't challenge. He didn't smile. He simply existed. Reynolds walked up to the counter and ordered coffee. But even as he did, his eyes kept drifting back toward Marcus. Something about him bothered the officer. Not because Marcus was doing anything wrong, but because Reynolds had already decided something in his head. After receiving his coffee, Reynolds didn't take a seat. Instead, he turned and walked directly toward Marcus's table. "You got ID on you?" Reynolds asked abruptly. Marcus looked up slowly, calm, confused, but controlled. "Excuse me," he said. "I said, do you have identification?" Reynolds repeated. Louder this time, the nearby conversations stopped. A waitress froze mid-step. A man at the next table looked up Marcus, kept his voice even. "Is there a problem, officer?" Reynolds leaned in slightly, invading Marcus's space. "You've been sitting here for a while, looking suspicious." Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. "I ordered breakfast." "I'm waiting for it," Reynolds scoffed. "Don't get smart with me." Marcus gently placed his phone face down on the table. He took a slow breath. Years of training reminded him to stay calm, to stay composed, to never escalate unless absolutely necessary. Officer Marcus said, "Am I being detained?" That question did it. Reynolds' jaw tightened. His grip on his coffee cup stiffened. "You don't ask the questions here," he snapped. "I do. I'm just asking for clarification," Marcus replied. "I haven't done anything illegal." "Stand up," Reynolds ordered. Marcus remained seated. "I'm not legally required to, unless you have the slap game fast." A sharp crack echoed through the restaurant. Reynolds' hand struck Marcus across the face with force. Not a shove, not a push. A slap, deliberate, humiliating. Gasps filled the room. A woman near the window covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." A fork clattered to the floor. Marcus's head turned slightly from the impact. His cheek burned. The room spun for a split second. But he didn't fall. He didn't shout. He didn't strike back. He slowly straightened in his chair. Reynolds stood over him, breathing heavily. "That's for your attitude," he said. The room was frozen. Phones came out. People were recording, watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus took a breath, deep, controlled, measured. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. Instead, he reached slowly into his jacket. Reynolds's hand flew to his gun. "Don't move." Marcus stopped immediately, his hands visible, calm. "I'm not reaching for a weapon," Marcus said quietly. "I'm reaching for identification, the kind you should have asked for properly." With 2 fingers, he slowly slid a leather wallet across the table toward Reynolds. "I strongly suggest you read that," Marcus added. Reynolds hesitated. His eyes darted around the room. To many witnesses, to many cameras, he picked up the wallet, opened it, the color drained from his face. Inside was a federal badge. FBI. The room went dead silent. Reynolds swallowed hard. This isn't funny," he muttered. Marcus stood up calmly. "No sudden movements, no aggression. You just assaulted a federal agent," Marcus said evenly. "In a public place, in front of witnesses, without cause." Reynolds' mouth opened. "No words came out," Marcus continued, his voice steady but firm. "You violated my civil rights. You abused your authority, and you acted on assumption instead of law." Reynolds looked around desperately. Everyone was watching. Everyone was recording. Within minutes, unmarked vehicles pulled up outside. Men and women in plain clothes entered the restaurant. Calm, professional. "You okay?" Marcus nodded. Reynolds was handcuffed on the spot, escorted out of the restaurant, in front of everyone. By the end of the day, Reynolds was suspended. Internal Affairs opened an investigation. Body cam footage went viral. Civil rights charges were filed, and Marcus, he sat back down, finished his breakfast, paid the bill, and walked out quietly. Because real power doesn't need to shout, and prejudice always exposes itself.